You tell yourself, well, okay, let's say I accept 100% that person did what it did. And then something inside of you will shout, no! That's it. That's the thing that doesn't want to transform.
So, stage 1, remember yourself. Stage 2, become aware and in contact with the suffering, with the pain that you're actually experiencing. And accept it while you're becoming aware and in contact. Accept the pain and the suffering for exactly what it is. Stage 3, contemplate that suffering, that difficulty, until it reveals its message and its lesson. Stay with it. This is also the stage where we stay in the body and we observe the movements within the body. And stage 4, allow for natural transformation to arise by taking the feedback that you got from the suffering and learning your lesson naturally. Well, it could be that momentarily you were actually going through the 4 steps, but then momentarily you fell out of it again. You forgot yourself again. You went out of self-remembering. Also, again, if you want to see it with this dimension that Uriel gave, where you currently are versus what is the actual integration, where you are meant to be, let's say, in this moment. If there's a difference, you suffer. And then if in this moment you managed through the 4 steps to go where you belong, you don't suffer. Great. A day later, you start suffering. Same story that maybe arises in your mind. We usually have like 10 stories that we run on. So it's usually the same or similar story that comes up in your mind. And because you are sitting not on your integrated line again, but you got tempted to be somewhere else. So whenever you get tempted to be somewhere else, the mind will whip out its usual blah, 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 blah story about what's up. And it's typically, even if things change, even if the people that annoy you change, once it's in the work, once it's in the relationship, still the story sort of stays very similar. And in time, if you practice this, you will see that you are running just on really a set of stories that you can fit into your 2 hands, basically.
Yeah, so the outer world will stay the outer world. You will have power struggles, you will have annoying people, aggressive people, boring people, all sorts of things. Corona, disease, old age,
Riots,
death, riots, death of loved ones. All the problems will stay and take their natural course as they go. But the attitude that we have in front of the power struggles, that's what we change. You see, if before these power struggles were extremely draining for us, now they make us extremely vigilant, extremely awake, extremely compassionate. Whatever that transformation is supposed to do in us. You know, take the example of Viktor Frankl. The guy was in the Holocaust. 3 years, Auschwitz, the worst thing. Everybody around him died. Lost all his family, everything. But he transformed. He meditated on the suffering. During his time in the concentration camp, he wrote on toilet paper a scientific view of what it means to be psychologically in a concentration camp. On toilet paper. Long toilet paper. But that process, it made him aware of what's happening in him, in the others, and he transformed into a remarkably compassionate, powerful, intelligent, and wise person. You can read his book, Man's Search for Meaning, a masterpiece. He wrote it in 9 days from taking the notes from the toilet paper. He actually wrote it there. A real masterpiece of how this climax of suffering, I mean, we all have sufferings in our life, but Auschwitz, that's serious suffering. If you read the book, you really get the feeling of it. And he was transformed by that. So people struggle, people fight. What do you feel about it? Do you feel afraid to be the next victim of that? How do you feel when people aggress you? People that master that, they become the boss of the organization. People who are not afraid of fights because they can alchemize inside. So you take that, whatever pain, whatever power struggle, and you take the transformative impulse, which will be, I don't need power. In the end of the day, I don't need to have power over anyone. I don't need to force anyone to do anything. I believe in these values, and here, in front of anyone and anything, these are my values. If you want me to be in this company, in this organization, these are the values that I bring forth. That's it. I'm not going to force it over anyone, but this is my values. You understand? That's a vertical approach, which is not imposing and also not afraid. That would be a digested approach for power struggle.
And I also want to encourage you in general to overcome the power struggle between people. Indicates A, that they wake up, like Oriel described, and B, that they go into the heart. This essential shift from the lower three levels of our being, the lower three chakras, consciousness-wise, to the consciousness of the heart. This is the essential shift that makes these power struggles, comparisons, and so forth stop. The heart is considered the human level, the level where we wake up to the reality that we actually are at least connected with everybody. That as much as we are very diverse and very, each of us uniquely manifesting, within that we are also all united. This idea of unity and diversity, that is the realization at the level of the heart. Only when the heart awakens really fully, only then power struggle can really be overcome. Until then, of course, you can become aware, step out of it, and so forth, but it will be something that will dominate your being as long as you are still on the first three levels mainly. Yeah, all of that is solved when you go in the heart, and only then. And even if you are the cutest, most sweetest, because some of us have an ego that is trying to hide that we are bossy and that we are actually wanting to have power over people. And usually for those people, they are the worst. They are trying to control everybody around by being sugary sweet. But you can feel through the sugary sweet pasted a smile on controlling comments that they make that actually they have the same problem as everybody else. Seek the heart. That will always help. So of course, the more severe the suffering, the more maybe it will require from your side to continue with self-remembering, giving the impulse of self-remembering. When the suffering is, let's say, categorized within your being as very awful, and when you identify with it as it's the worst ever, there's a difference of let's say suffering that you went to the supermarket, but then the supermarket turned out it was closed and you lost half an hour of your life. That's one way of suffering. There's another way of suffering when you are in a horrible, abusive relationship with family members and it's all very awful and dreadful every day. So it will be harder in the second example to give the impulse of self-remembering. Also, as a psychologist, I'm here to tell you, also do therapy. Also consider if you want to stay in the close proximity of people that are toxic. If you do want to have relationships with people that are very abusive, you might choose to, but make it a choice. Don't make it like I'm the victim of the situation, I have to stay here. There are no other options. Usually there are options, and within the framework of a good therapy session, you can usually find some good solutions. If you find yourself a family therapist, that can be very, very helpful to do as well.
Yeah, the more massive the suffering, the bigger the transformation it gives. And it will take a long time with big suffering, but also it will transform us immensely. As the suffering of Gandhi, the suffering of Nelson Mandela, the suffering of Viktor Frankl, that we mentioned before, the suffering of Christ, to take the ultimate great example, the ultimate example, they brought a huge transformation. And many people, many great people, if you look at their past, they have great suffering. And they somehow intuit this mechanism. They figured it out somehow. and they realize, if either I stay completely broken from this suffering, or I alchemize it and become a great human being. Look at the biographies, almost all great human beings that were really great and with moral values and made a positive, massive positive impact at humanity. They had some massive suffering, and they alchemized it in that way. The suffering created such a self-remembering, created such an alchemy inside, that it awakened these amazing qualities. And then people, of course, they would follow, they would take the impact, because look what's awakened in that person. Yeah, he was in Auschwitz 3 years. You can't beat that. That's it. You never known such intensity, and that person is walking vertical. So me, with my pain, I will also walk vertical, because I'm following that one. Yeah, so just take it as such. The bigger the suffering, the bigger the transformation, but also the bigger and longer the work. So there is one aspect that you don't want to transform. There is some aspect of your personality that is still pushing the mailman, the doctor, the renovation system, whatever you want to, as a metaphor of suffering, it pushes it away. I'm willing to transform in this and in that and in that, as you transformed in so many ways. But there is something there that's still not flexible. How do you find it? You meditate on the suffering. Yeah? If the hardest thing for you would be to accept that that person did what it did, you tell yourself, well, okay, let's say I accept 100% that person did what it did. And then something inside of you will shout, no! That's it. That's the thing that doesn't want to transform. Where do you shout no from? Because you're angry? Because you're attached? Because you feel humiliated? Because what? Is your pride that's hurt? Is because it makes you feel insecure? What is it? That thing doesn't want to transform. Yeah? So you present your suffering with its worst case scenario, and something will stand out. That which stands out is the part of your personality that doesn't want to be transformed. Don't tell them I told you. Do the whole thing, and you will see how they will stand. This part will stand out.
It's a complex question, really. And the first thing that I want to say is it will make things more complicated, because obviously if you have a group of people that suffer from the same thing, you would need to have a transformation for each and every one of them. You could say, if let's say you are part of such a group that is suffering, like Frankl was suffering with a lot of other people, and not everybody came out from Auschwitz with a great accomplishment and a book written. So you could say, okay, they were suffering together, but one sort of learned a very specific lesson that allowed for a specific transformation within their being. So you have the individual integration into a group that then will use the same steps to have their individual lesson. It will be harder for the individual to learn, because now you are bound into a group, you are identified with a group that suffers. And stopping to suffer means that, to a degree, you remove yourself a bit from that group. And that is usually hard for us when we are identified with a group, right? If you are the fan of a football club and they lose the championship, and you decide in the middle of it, you self-remember, and you are like, I don't really feel like suffering about this, and you're sitting with your 20 friends who are crying and drowning their sorrow in alcohol, you will now be more removed from that group, and you will feel, well, yeah, I don't really belong to this group any longer, and I cannot identify and exchange with them and whine about this awful championship and so forth. So this comes along with it, which is hard for the individual to do. So it adds an extra challenge for the individual. Like 100% for Frankl, it was not easy to say, you know what, I'm going to make this Auschwitz experience one of the greatest key revelations of my whole life. It was surely putting him into a position of being less identified with people around and feeling sort of less belonging to the group in a lower sense. On the other hand, like, for example, Frankl, like Gandhi, You might inspire great change within that group, understanding, hey guys, I'm in the same awful position that you are in. I am suffering just like you do. And look what I'm doing with the suffering. I'm making this significant step. If now a certain critical mass of individuals does that, or if one individual is very shining, radiant and visible in that, like Gandhi, freeing India in that way, then other people will jump on the bandwagon and have realizations and grow forth also from there.
Yeah, if you take the example of Nelson Mandela, who healed inside of him the violence between the apartheid regime and the local people of South Africa, he healed inside of him that violence, and then he came out, and the healing inside of him became the healing in many, 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 many millions of people, at least to a degree. But first he sat in prison and alchemized his own, because he entered the prison a violent person. He came out non-violent. Yeah, is a certain inner mastery which later became an example to heal a part of the terrible pain from all the injustice that South Africa suffered.
And what I find about this example actually really fascinating is that I feel that especially the South African Black community, they carry such an ability to forgive with still as a group, even though it's not necessarily so, openly now used, and maybe there's not a particular leader that is capitalizing on this wonderful quality, but it was sort of injected by Nelson Mandela's practice of forgiveness. And at that time, so many people were following and forgiving horrible, horrible sins that were done against them, and creating an amazing leap, I would say, even within that community from a soul perspective, you could say. Basically the exact same thing. Of course, what might be confusing is that the suffering that you're going through might not be very clearly like an outer object, like a clock. But it is still sort of something that you identify as different from you. You say, okay, this is the suffering, and this is me, this is the one remembering myself. And then you go back and forth. Suffering, self-remembering, and you extend your awareness to embrace both of them at once. So it's the same process.
Yeah, so I have a little bit of a belly pain now. Yeah, I'll just show you the process. So I have a little bit of a belly pain. The belly pain is right here, and I look at the belly pain, and I also look at the observer. When I look at the observer, the light in this room becomes very, very intense, and I become still. There is this feeling of eternity. It's like a pause in time. And then I go back to the pain, and now the pain is less. And I see where the pain is, and it's going a little bit to the solar plexus. And I go back to awareness, and in awareness there's utter suspension. It's like everything is resolved over there. And I go back to the pain. And in time, I can't speak and do it, but in time you stay in this witness and in the pain. And it's, I don't know, I don't even know how to say it. It's like the whole experience gets resorbed and returned afresh. That's basically the point.
I would do this method of these 4 steps that we were suggesting. Do that like a tapas. Do it on a daily basis. Make time for it. Take time to contemplate, to really understand yourself, to digest the past pain. Allow for that. You might realize, okay, I got hurt from some actions of some people. Okay, let me sit with that. What's the message in that? What can I learn from that? It happens in our human contacts and in our human ways. We hurt each other. We don't understand each other at times. Sit with this method of self-remembering, contemplating, getting the lesson, accepting fully that you feel pain, grieving through it, learning the lesson, transforming from that. Do that on a daily basis. Find a good frame that works for you. Maybe you take 15 minutes for that. Maybe you take an hour for that, and see how you can apply these steps on a daily basis.
And then do at least a little bit of yoga and relaxation after, because it leaves residues. Normally it leaves some pranic residues. So you do that, then you do a bit of yoga and relaxation, and you wash. You see, we are actually almost constantly in a state of, if we continue with the Gurdjieff line, we are in a state of sleep. The automatic old habits that we never subscribed for monthly anger or something. We never subscribe and chose these automatic habits.
What we did just not now.
Yeah, we kind of unconsciously chose them, and they are unconsciously our reactions, and then we are acting in this state of sleep. Now, since you've done already some spiritual practice and you have your daily practice and you already are on this path for some time, you detect the automatic process. You detect, I am defending myself. Good. When you are conscious that you are mechanic, you see, when I'm conscious that I put this finger and I put this finger here, I did not choose to put this finger on this finger. I have a choice and I can do something else with my hands, like what I did now.
Very creative.
Very creative, yeah, very creative move. You didn't expect that. So once we are aware of the automatism, we have freedom from it. As long as we think, I am the automatism, somebody is attacking me, I should defend. Somebody is saying your shirt is ugly, I say your shirt is ugly. Ha! Show them, yeah? This is an automatic reaction. If in the process, yeah, like you said, you want to wake up in the moment, somebody says your shirt is ugly, and you are just attentive, and you feel.
And you kill them with your eyes.
I am burning with anger, I feel it rising like this in my belly. I'm super angry. I thought my shirt was nice. Is that person trying to attack me? And so forth. And you see the whole process as it automatically unfolds, then you gain control over it. And then you can choose. You want to insult their shirt, their car, their friends, their family members, you can. But also, you don't have to. You can be there in the beginning of the process. Now, this process of waking up needs to be constantly trained. I do it from the moment, like I look at the clock and I see, I still have half an hour to sleep. Oh, so nice. I already start to wake up in my sleep. Yeah, I already start to divide attention as I wake up, as I go and brush my teeth. From the beginning of the day, I brush my teeth with using different hands for the toothbrush. When you go up the stairs, go up with the left leg first, always. To remember yourself when you go up the stairs, every time. Yeah, in the Gurdjieff schools, you would enter the car seat from the other side. This is very difficult. You open the other door and then you go through the car. Very annoying. But you remember yourself. Yeah? And then, since you know the system of the chakras, you work a lot on the heart chakra and on the crown chakra and on the third eye. The more intensely you work there, the more the state of vigilance appears.
Hey guys, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content on spirituality, Tantra and more.
And if you want to sign up for our online classes or for our retreats, you can see our website on the description below.